Hey guys, welcome back to the second episode of our Let's Code series where we are developing a manga extractor. In this episode, we will be setting up our file system and returning the list of chapters of the search manga to the user using the dictionary we returned from the search manga function we created from last episode. Before we start, the code may look a little different because I added some print statements from last time. I added the dash dividers to divide up the work so it's easier to follow. So here, let me show you guys an example of that. So we're just gonna type in Python YT. So it's gonna show up that divider. So let's say we want to do total, I don't know, it just divides up our work a little easier so it's easier to read. And here's where we left off last time, where we searched up a manga and then we return back the choice that we want to end up downloading. Sweet. All right, let's code now. Firstly, we're gonna create a folder for the manga series that we want to end up searching. Again, remember that title info ends up returning basically a dictionary containing the title and the link that it associates with. So here, let me just write it out for you guys so that it's easier to follow. So again, this is the notation. And then here's the link with the associated HTTPS link that follows. Bam. All right. So because files can't be created with spaces and a bunch of the characters, we need to replace all those with an underscore. So what I mean by that is okay, so let's say I'm searching Tokyo Ghoul, right? You can't make a folder that's Tokyo Ghoul. I mean, maybe you can. Yeah, you can. My bad. But let's say we have a %, right? Or a question mark sign inside our title. We want to be able to delete those and essentially make it so the folder can be successfully created without error. So let's go on about saying if there's a space in the title info, or there's slashes, or there's a backslash or a semicolon, we just want to make it so all the convention is underscore for if there's a space or anything. So it just keeps clean with the rest of the way that we want to develop this. So I'm going to fast forward this, and it's just going to be a bunch of things that we need to type out. So we're just going to make a new variable called edited title. And this is going to be the title that is going to contain all the underscores where it needs to be. So edited title equals title info. So we're just going to use all those. So we're going to basically call a replace function on all of the characters that we want to replace with an underscore now. So I'm going to go skip a little more because this is just pretty tedious. So simply if the title doesn't need replacing Tokyo Ghoul or any other title, or one word titles, you can just create an else statement, excuse me, where edited title literally equals the title info title, just the original title it came with. Cool. So now we're gonna start with the file system stuff. So we're gonna go into our current working directory. We're gonna get the path of that. So os.get cwd. So if you guys aren't familiar with get current working directory, that's essentially where your Python file is located. So in my case, it's on my desktop in this Extractor folder. So that's gonna have the string of that. So I'll just put it here just in case. So that's essentially what get current working directory is. The next thing that we're going to want to do is we're going to want to create the address path of the new folder we want to create. So basically, we're basically doing the cwd plus Tokyo Ghouls in this case. So let's do title directory equals os.path.join. So this is string concatenation in a way. So cwd plus edited title. So let's say that we created Tokyo Ghoul, right? Tokyo Ghoul has a space, so it's gonna have an underscore right there. So in the end, the title directory will end up looking like this. Now that we have like this title directory, we want to be able to create the folder to that directory, right? So we're gonna try to do that. So we're gonna try to make the directory of that title directory, and then we're gonna if it can't do it, then we're gonna do an exception error. So os error as exe if exe.errorNo is not equal errorNo.exist, raise the exception, otherwise you just pass it. So basically what this is doing is, now say that we're running this program and it's like not the first time we're creating like a folder for Tokyo Ghouls. So we want to make an exception for like if the folder already exists, don't like try to create another folder and error out basically. And if basically it tries to do os.make directory on a folder that already exists, it's going to raise an exception and basically stop this program. So that's essentially what we're checking for. Now let's go create the find chapter function. And basically, essentially, this find chapters function is going to return back what chapters actually to download. And it's going to take in the link that we found from title info. So let's go create that real quick. So chapter equals find chapters. It's going to take in the title info and the link to that manga. So again, a visual representation of this is, and so if we search Tokyo Ghouls right now, right? We want this link right here. Let's say we push 0. It's this link we want right here. That'll take us to this page, which will contain all the chapters of our manga that we want to download. So let's go ahead and create the function back here. Def find chapters, and it's going to take in link. All right, so basically again, we're going to make a request to the internet through Python using the link provided from the title info variable. So let's go do that real quick. So r equals request.get link. And then now we're going to return the HTML of this page on the right here of the page using beautiful soup. We're just going to get the contents of it and return back the HTML. All right, so now we're also going to create like a chapter list array, which will contain all these chapters. We're going to want to put all the chapters here inside this chapter array. To do so, we're going to inspect the elements. So let's go right click that and just inspect elements. So we see currently that here, let me minimize this. All of the chapters here are encapsulated inside this table right here, this table class right here. And so this is the parent that contains all the elements of this table. So we want to locate this parent real quick. So let's go type in table equals soup.find table. So we want the table element right here, and we want the specific attributes. So let me expand this out. Attributes equals, so we know it has class LSCH, and also has an ID equaling to table. So let's go pin that down like so. Now to get to all of the actual chapters, we need to traverse through these tr elements. So to get that, we have to go from the table to the t body to now the trs with the class item prop, or the item prop attribute has part. So let's go do that real quick. For tr in table.tbody, You can use the dot notation for if it's down one level in the hierarchy. So dot find all. And then we want all the tr elements with the attributes. Oops, I forgot a comma. All the attributes equals item prop has part. Oops, has a capital P right there. So we want to do that. All right. So now let's close this item prop real quick. So we notice that, let's look at this chapter 145 now. So this item prop has elements inside. And so we want to be able to find out where that title, where the chapter 145 is. So let's go expand this tag. Oh, it has an A tag, which contains the link to that chapter. And it also has the chapter number. So let's go real quick and create like a chapter info like dictionary real quick to hold all the information. So we're gonna try real quick, getting the chapter number. So chapter number equals the float of tr.td. So tr.td.a right here, td.a.span. And then we can get the text since it's just located right here. So that's that. That's how you get the chapter number. And then we're just going to do chapter info dot append, or not append. It's a dictionary. So we're going to make a new key called chapter equals the chapter number. Now we want this link, right? So we just go from tr td to the a value. So we're going to create a chapter. We're going to make a link key to that dictionary where it's going to be tr.td.a, and then we're going to get that href tag, the attribute, my bad. Cool. And then we're going to append that to the chapter list. So chapter list dot append chapter info, like so. You're also probably wondering why we're actually using a try except block. Well, it's not apparent in this manga series, but in some other manga series, I've come across where there's chapter 8 v2, or like they have extra like characters instead of numbers inside this element right here. And to get rid of that, we're just gonna redo that try except block, because if it ran across like if it tried to do a float, try to create a floating point variable of something that has of type character, it doesn't work since they're not all numbers. So if we come across like a number, we're just gonna make an exception for a value error and just like skip those. So if there's a chapter that contains like, chapter 21 v2, let's say, like version 2, well, it's gonna skip that version 2 and only download the chapter 1. So that's the reason why we do try except statements in this. So that's just a thing that I had to get over when I was coding this at first. But all right, so now that we got all of the chapters into this chapters list, we've extracted all the chapters from this list, which is kind of cool. Now we're gonna sort the list so that it goes in ascending order. So when we're creating this chapter list variable, we're appending chapter 145, then chapter 144. So it's in descending order. So basically we want to make it ascending order. So we want to make it so the user sees chapter 1, then chapter 2, then chapter 3, and so on. So let's do that. Chapter list equals sorted. We're going to do a sort function on this. So we're going to sort the chapter list by the key. And basically what this function is doing is it's going to sort the dictionary based on the chapter value in ascending order. Yeah, in ascending order. Cool. So now we gotta do like a print statement for like all the chapters available. So for I in range length of the chapter list, we're just gonna print out all the available chapters to the user. So we're gonna print out chapter that format chapter list at the ith value, and then print out the actual chapter. Cool. So now let's just divide up our work real quick. I'm just gonna copy and paste like one of these print blocks. Bam, that. All right, so now let me show you guys a demo real quick before I begin more. So let's run this my team extractor. So let's say we want to download Tokyo Ghoul, and we want to get the 0th index for just the regular Tokyo Ghoul. It's gonna print out all of the chapters from this page, basically, in ascending order. Nice. So now we want to make it so the user is able to pick and choose what manga chapters to actually download. And that's what we're going to do next. So let's create a new variable called chapters to download. And now we're going to give the user like a couple notes where like please use decimals, as there are half chapters as well. So this means like the user has to signify they want 143.5, like in this case right here. Or if they want 144, they need to use 144.0 because we stored everything as a floating point value instead of an integer. So let's also create another, let's make another note for the user saying like choose the manga chapters to download. Oops. Separated by commas. So an example, like you can give them the choice to do 1.0 if they want 2.0 or like 5.0. Oops, sorry. But like we want to give them the choice to be able to essentially choose the chapters they want to download. Like give them that option. So let's say they want chapters 1, 2, and also 5. We can allow that. Let's also give them a range of manga chapters to download. So using the dash. So let's give them examples like 1.0 to 14.0 equals chapters 1 to 14 to download. And if they also want to, we can download to type them, like we can just make it so they want to download all the chapters available. So let's just give them that choice. Cool. Now let's just make a new print statement as for a new line. And now let's give them the choice. Now let's type in user input equals input. What chapters should I download for you? All right, there you are. And this will give them the choice. So now we got to create a bunch of conditional statements that signifies what they chose. So based on our 3 results, we gave them the choice of typing in all, using dash or the commas. So let's tackle the all condition. So let's say they input the all value they want to download all the chapters. So let's convert our user input so it's all uppercase. And if it matches all, then we're just going to return in the chapter list. And this is going to essentially tell our program to download all the chapters that we extracted with the links they provided. Now, elif, if the user uses dash in their input, we want to be able to essentially replace, sorry, I'm spacing out literally. No, but essentially like, so there's like different conditions. So like if they type in 5.0, 14.0, like, you know, there's a space in between, right? So we want to eliminate that space. So let's go and do that real quick. So user input equals user input dot replace. We're going to replace all the spaces with no space. Oops. So now that this user input should look like 5.0 to 14.0, bam. And now we want to be able to parse the request based on this string. So we want to be able to make an array of 5.0 and 14.0 right now. And this is the only divider. So let's type in parsed user input equals user input dot split at the comma or the dash. So basically what this is going to do is create an array which is going to look like this. It's going to have 5.0 in the first index and 14.0 in the second index. Now what we're going to do is we're going to do a for loop statement. So let's do a for loop I in numpy dot arrange from the first index of our parse user input to the first index for the second index. So parse user input at the second index now plus 0.1 with using 0.1 step. So let's go here. Actually, hold up first. So like we need to import numpy, which I forgot to do in the first episode. So let's do that real quick. Import numpy as np. So you'll have to do a pip install on numpy if you want to be able to use this library. So keep that in mind. But okay, let's go back to this. So basically what this code is saying is, okay, so I can't really do a normal for loop and just do float from this to this because apparently like normal for loops don't let like float operators, like you can't go up by 0.1 is what I'm trying to say. Like 0.1 step, you couldn't go up by an integer step. So we had to use numpy. So basically this is a normal for loop going from 5.0 to 14.0 stepwise of 0.1. The reason why I do 0.1 is because there's sometimes chapter 0.5, chapter 0.8. I don't know. It's just part of manga fast, I guess. But we also want 0.1, like this plus 0.1 on top of this, because if we just do 5.0 to 14.0 in our for loop, it's going to do 5.0 to 13.9. It won't go up to this 14.0 number because the for loop only goes till less than this, not less than equal to this. So now let's go ahead and let's get the title array where the chapter equals the ith value we are currently at. So num index equals next index for, I'll explain this in a little bit, index d in enumerate chapter list if d chapter equals round I1 none. So essentially what this block of statement is doing is essentially so we're looking inside our dictionary of chapter list, and basically if it finds chapter 0.1 on the first iteration, if it finds chapter 0.1, then return back the index from the chapter list. If it doesn't find it, just call it none. So in this case, like there's no such thing as chapter 0.1, so it's gonna return none on this first iteration. So we have to make a check for that. If num index equals none, then we're just gonna continue and forget about that. So otherwise, like, if it comes across like, chapter 1.0, there is a chapter 1.0 in our chapter list. So it'll return back that the index from our chapter list in this num index variable. So now what we're going to do is we're going to append that index to the chapter to download list. Chapter list num index. Bam. And at the end of this for loop, we're just going to return back the chapter to download list. Boom. So now we have to consider another condition, right? Like if we're using commas in the user input, we want to be able to it's gonna be like the same logic as the dash, but it's just commas. So we're gonna do this again, and then do a for loop through the length of the parsed user input. And so let's say we want only, 5.0 and 14.0, right? It's just gonna go through 2 times and get the index at those places. And then we're going to put it into the chapter to download list, essentially. So let's do this again. Okay, cool. So basically, like, again, it'll look inside this chapter list dictionary. And if the chapter that we're currently at equals, if it finds like the chapter of the chapter that we want. So if it finds 5.0 inside the chapter list, it'll return back that index to that from the chapter list into this num index array, or num index variable, my bad. And so we're just gonna simply append that then. Chapter list to download, dot append, chapter list. And then again, we're just gonna return the chapter list. Boom. So now we're gonna do an else statement for like, if they want to actually download like one chapter, right? If they want to download one chapter, then we're just gonna create this else statement. So, if int use float user input %1 equals 0. So basically we want to check to see if it's a normal number, like if it's an actual number instead of a character. And then we also want to check to see if the value that the user inputted is within the range of the indexes inside the chapter list. Then it's like a valid number that we can choose from. So int float user input greater than equal to int of the chapter list and int float user input is less than equal to the length of the chapter list, or yeah, the chapter list. -1. Boom. So if it's in range, then we're just going to essentially find the index of that thing inside our chapter list dictionary. All right, bam. So if we want to do a single chapter download, we just look for that index, we look for that chapter inside the chapter list array, chapter list dictionary, and then return the index. Again, we do these 2 steps, essentially. Boom. So let's say like it's not like a valid number. Let's say they return, like let's say the user inputs like, you know, A or B, chapter B or whatever, and it's not really a chapter inside our chapter list. We're just gonna print out incorrect input and then back to the start, and then just return, then go to main. Cool. All right, and just do a return statement for this function. I think that's redundant. I don't think you need it, but all right, cool. So basically the chapter that we want to download will be stored in chapter. So let's go print out what we have so far. Oh, hold on 1 second. And line 107. Oh, I just forgot like a comma or a quote. So let's type in Tokyo Ghoul. All right, so we want Tokyo Ghoul. And now we're on this page. It returned back all the chapters. And now let's say we want to download chapter 1.0, right? It's going to return back the chapter. This find chapters function is going to return back the chapter that we want to download and the link to that chapter. All right, to show you guys another example of this, let's go back and type in Tokyo Ghouls. And now let's print back like a list of chapters to download. So let's do 14, chapter 1 to 14. It'll return back all of the chapters from 1 to 14. 1, and then you see chapter 14 right there. Okay, so just a reminder, guys, like remember to always use like a floating point notation when you're looking for the chapter, because because like I guess the chapters on the right, like sometimes they're like chapters 100.5 or just normal chapter 100, so you can't really use integer numbers, so you have to opt to use floating point numbers. Well, that's gonna conclude this episode, guys. Stay tuned for more. In the next episode, we're gonna end up we're actually gonna start the downloading process. So basically, I guess sneak peek of what we're gonna end up doing is, so let's say we want to download chapter 104, right? Well, we're gonna go and search through the inspect, and we're gonna inspect all the elements to the images. We're gonna basically extract all the image files from this page and convert them to a PDF. So yeah, that's essentially what's gonna happen. I'm pretty excited for making this, so hopefully you guys are excited as well, and stay tuned for more. Peace, guys.